Yeah, I can see that. Can you see my presentation? Everything is fine?
Yeah, great.
I can start.
I will put you in focus. Okay, and you can start.
Yeah, I will start. Thank you. Thank you very much, Liat, for your time. So my name is David Dan. I'm an Israeli CPA. In the past, I worked for PwC, and I was a director of finance in several high-tech companies that were traded in the NASDAQ and Toronto Stock Exchange. I also took part in writing the tax reform for Olim, so I'm in this area for many years. And let's start. We will start with a few things that I think you need to know before making Aliyah to Israel. A few basic things. I'm not planning on making you an expert. That's for sure. So I'll just speak about the principles of individual taxation in Israel. That would be like a few principles, not all of them, but the most important principles. And I will focus on tax benefits for Olim because that's why you are here. You would like to know about these tax benefits. You should know about it. And I'll speak about just briefly about tax benefits for businesses, just for knowledge. That's it. And I will finish with business Aliyah program and services. Again, just highlights, just to give you some idea about this program. So let's get started because we are short in time. I hope we will have some time for questions later. If not, take into consideration that we are answering your questions. So if you have questions after the expo, no doubt we will talk to you within 48 hours, something like that. We can get back to you and answer all of your questions. So let's start. Just a second. Okay. So the most important principle of the Israeli tax authority is here in that following sentence that you see on the screen. So an Israeli resident is taxed on his income from all sources and from around the globe. So once you are considered an Israeli resident, and we will speak about it in a moment, you have to report on an apartment that you own in the UK, in London. You have to report on shares that you own in a specific company. You have to report on all of your income anywhere in China, in Mexico, anywhere you own something and you get an income from. So just imagine that the moment you're making Aliyah, the moment your feet is touching the Israeli ground, automatically you are becoming an Israeli resident. And once you are becoming an Israeli resident, then remember that at the same moment you were supposed to, if there was no tax reform, you were supposed to report on all of your assets in South Africa, in the UK, in Australia. You were supposed to report on your income from these assets, on dividends that you were getting, on interest rate that you were getting, on everything. So without the tax reform, you were immediately considered an Israeli resident right away, and you were subject to this principle, which is, as I said, basic, something that you have to know. So all Israelis are taxed on all of their income from all sources around the globe, except Olim Chadashim, and we'll see that in a moment. Now, what determines if you are an Israeli resident? So most of you goes directly to number of days. Now, number of days this is very important. Now, how many days are you in a year, in a certain year in Israel? But that's not the only factor. Remember that. The most important factor is center of life. And center of life is many things. It's number of days. It's where your spouse, where your wife is, where your husband is, where your kids are learning, in which kindergartens, schools, where do you have a home, where do you own a car, where do you have a bank account, where are you getting healthcare, and so on. So what determines if you are an Israeli resident? It's your center of life and not just the number of days that you spend in the year. By the way, before the COVID-19, there were thousands of Israelis traveling every week to Europe, working in Europe, and by the weekend, coming back to Israel. Now, even though they were spending only 90 days a year, sometimes less than 100 days a year in Israel, still because their wife was in Israel, their kids were in Israel, their kids learn in Israeli schools, they have home in Israel, they were still considered to be Israeli resident, even though they were spending a very short time in a year in Israel. So remember, not just number of days, but center of life. That's the thing that is important for you to do, remember. So what are the tax benefits for Olim? So as I said, without the tax reform, you were supposed to report on all of your assets anywhere in South Africa, in the UK, all of your income from dividends from shares that you own for years in the UK, you were supposed to report all of it in Israel. But since the tax reform that was approved in the Israeli Knesset in 2008, and as I mentioned, I took part in writing it too. So the tax reform is giving you a tax holiday for 10 years. So for the first 10 years after making Aliyah, you don't need to report on the income that is generated from outside of Israel or on assets that reside outside of Israel. So let's give few examples. If you have real estate, for example, in South Africa, you don't need to report on that real estate. You don't need to report on the rental income from that real estate. If you have capital gains, you own share and you sell that share. You bought it for 100, you sold it for 150. You have capital gain. You don't need to report on that capital gain in Israel, as long as that share is from outside of Israel. Dividends, you own shares in foreign entities, foreign companies in the UK, in the US, elsewhere outside of Israel. The dividends that you are getting from these shares is tax exempt. You don't need to report on that dividend to the Israeli tax authorities, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. And you can see the emphasis working abroad. If you work abroad, either it's for a business or you're just employed by someone, as long as you work abroad, that work is excluded. So you don't need to report on the income from that work, and you don't have to pay taxes in Israel for that specific income. However, if you work from your home office in Israel, and we'll speak about it in a second, that's something else. Then you have to report. So it's a huge tax benefits, especially for people that are coming with assets to Israel, with assets, with sources of income from around the globe, from Mexico, from the US, from the UK, from China, from many places. It's a huge tax advantage for Olim who comes from different countries. Now, if remember what I've said, if you do work from your home office in Israel for a foreign entity, either if you are employed by that foreign entity or you are a subcontractor, you have to report that income in Israel. Even if your client is in the UK or in South Africa or in Australia, and the money is accepted over there. So in that case, if you work on Israeli soil, remember that you have to report, you have to pay taxes on it to the Israeli tax authority in Israel. That's not tax exempt. So differentiate between a position where you travel, you go to Australia, you go to South Africa, you work from there, you go to the UK, you work from there. If you work from there, that's fine. That's away from the Israeli tax authorities. If you do work from home office, it's a different story in Israel. It's a different story. Then you have to report, you have to pay taxes in Israel and not elsewhere. In addition, any income that is generated on Israeli soil is subject to taxes. And the best example, if the BBC is deciding to send a reporter, even though, let's say, he's not a Jew, he never ever lived in Israel, never ever will live in Israel after, but he will send, let's say, for 10 months, just to speak about reporting about the political events. When he is on Israeli soil and he works on Israeli soil, that BBC reporter, he needs to report on that income of him, and he will pay taxes in Israel before he's paying taxes to the UK. So that's another principle, another important principle that you need to know. As an olim, you have additional extra tax credits for the first 3.5 years. So you pay less taxes than any other Israeli that work on Israeli soil. And this is for income that is within the borders of Israel. So you, for 3.5 years from the day that you are making Aliyah, remember that, you pay less taxes than everyone else in Israel. And a very good and nice tax benefit for you too. What else you need to know? Okay, so individual tax rate on active income. What is active income? Income from work, income from a business. On that, you pay between 10 and 47%. By the way, it can even go up to 50% in certain circumstances. But remember, that's only for a very high income, usually above 650,000 a year, which is considered to be very high. So the Israeli tax system is progressive. The more you earn, the more you pay taxes. That's on active income. On passive income, income from capital gains, income from dividends, income from interest, in most cases, not in all cases, in most cases, you pay a flat rate of 25% on the passive income. So individual tax rate between 10 and 47%, passive income, flat rate of 20-25%, that's the range, and it's a flat rate with no limit. Corporate tax rate in Israel is 23%. It's not that high, but it's not that low. It's decent, I would say. It's a nice amount. We will see later how it can even be reduced. Important for the one of you thinks about opening a new company here. But 23%. What else you need to know? No inheritance tax, nothing. So it means parents can transfer their kids millions of pounds without paying any taxes in between such transfers, no inheritance tax. And reporting in Israel, most Israelis do not need to report to the Israeli tax authorities. You have to report only if you own a business in Israel, one, or if you are owning shares in a company, or if your income is very high, usually above 650,000 shekels a year, which is, as I said, considered to be a very high salary in Israel. Okay, so most Israelis do not report to the Israeli tax authorities. They don't have to. Few words about taxation of real estate, just because most of you will, at certain point in time, will get in touch with real estate, nothing that you can avoid. So just a few words. So purchase tax is when you buy real estate. And what we strongly suggest is that don't buy before making Aliyah, buy after making Aliyah. Wait, why? Because the purchase tax that you pay on real estate is higher when you buy it, as long as you are still living in the UK, still living in South Africa or in Australia. So wait until you actually live in Israel, your center of life has moved to Israel, and then buy the property that you want to live in, and then you pay purchase tax, but this purchase tax is less. The money that you pay is less there. Rental income from residential property is tax-free up to 5,100 NIS a month. That's nice to have. And capital gain, when you sell real estate, it's tax exempt only if this is your only residential real estate. If you own more than one, you are paying capital gain on real estate. So only if that's the property that you own and you actually live in, only then you are tax exempt. So that's the only slide about real estate, very short, but good for you to know. Now, just one slide about businesses, a very important one. If you are creating or developing or manufacturing a new technology, a new product, like something from scratch, it's not a commercial company, it's a really something that creates a real product, a real program, it can be high-tech, nanotech, biotech, anything to do with technology that you create from scratch, from nothing. You create a know-how. If you do so in certain peripheral areas away from the center of Tel Aviv, and if you do export at least 25% of your revenues, which is not that a lot, if you fulfill all the above criteria, you may be eligible to get what we call beneficiary status. If you get this beneficiary status, your corporate tax rate, if you remember your corporate tax rate, what is the official one, the flat one is 23%. This corporate tax rate can go down to 7.5%. Remember that out of every 100 pounds of earnings, of profit that being left in the company, think about it, that less than 8 pounds will go to the government pocket, and more than 92 pounds will be left in the company's pocket and can be reinvested. This is a huge benefit. But again, not for commercial companies, more for manufacturing, high-tech, that area being taking care. And this is, by the way, this is one of the reasons why we have so many high-tech companies. If you add few more factors, few more important factors. My last 2 slides, promise. So, and then I'll try to take a look at the questions. So Business IL is a program that was established by the Ministry of Aliyah and Integration about, I think, 15 years ago, something like that. And the main goal is to support new Olim. That's what the program is about, to support new Olim that want to start a new business in Israel. It can be a new business in Israel, it can be a business that you started in the UK and you want to copy paste it to Israel and so on, or you want to expand it into Israel. The purpose is to support you as Olim in that. Now we give you data, we give you business advice through experts, tax advisors like me, and so on. So that's the program about. And the service can start even before making Aliyah. So even when you are still in the UK, still in Australia, still in South Africa, we can give you that service by phone, by email, and you can start the process. I'm not saying that you can finish it, but you can start the process over there. And the services that the business is offering is as following. So for example, business advisor in the marketing, financing, you decide what area you need support in. So if you feel that you need support in marketing, we can give you up to 20 hours, and with startups, it can goes up to even to 40 hours. If you need more support in financing, getting loans from the government, we can, the business advisor will give you a hand, walk with you through the process, support you, help you. The charges are minimal. I would say it's almost for free for you. In addition, preparing a business plan, which helps you decide whether to go or no go with your plans. So we will prepare with you the business plan, and by that we are helping you to decide whether it's going to be profitable business and it means go, or it's not going to be profitable business and it means don't go. So preparing business plan. Taxation advice, that's what I do in this program. I will sit with you and structure the business in a way that will save you money, save you a lot of money, I hope. Of course, everything by the Israeli tax laws. And that's a service that you are getting, again, for free, no charge, nothing. Business courses, we used to do it also in the UK before the COVID-19. I don't know how long it will take before we get back and do it again in the UK. but usually the business courses are 10 meetings, 3 hours each, where you learn how to do marketing in Israel, how to do your taxation in Israel, how to get loans in Israel, and so on. You learn what are the new rules of the game in Israel, how to do your business, and how to be successful in your business in Israel. So all of that is part of the Business AL program that, as I said, is part of the Ministry of Aliyah and Integration. It's all for you. It's almost for free. Most of the services that you see here are for free. So if you have a friend, if you have a relative, just and you know that they want to start a business over there in Israel, just let them know about this wonderful service. Financing, I think I already mentioned, loans from the government in a better interest rate. So these are also things that are supporting businesses. And my last slide is that basically you go, you can find information about the Business AL program in the www.tobeInIsrael.org.il. If you get into the website, you can get a lot of information over there. You can call us from abroad. You have the number, and you can ask us questions using, just leave information about you, and we will get back to you. You can call us from Israel if you like, and you can also mail us, and we will get back to you, usually in a matter of next day or the day after, and that's it. And as I said, you can even start the process prior to making Aliyah to Israel. So thank you for listening. I'll try to take a look at the questions. It looks like there are a lot of them.
Yeah, I couldn't track the question and prepare them accordingly. It's, I think, better for you to read and to answer.
Let me see how I'm getting back. Just trying, I'm trying to get back to the normal.
Are you doing unshare on the top of your screen?
I need first to unshare, yeah, I guess so, but, okay, stop share, yeah, thank you. Okay, I'll go through the questions. I hope to be, how does tax work if I continue to work for a UK company but make Aliyah? Where do I pay taxes? Okay, good question. The first question. So the question is, how does tax work if I continue to work for a UK company but make Aliyah? Remember, if you work on Israeli soil, no doubt about it that you have to pay taxes in Israel, not in the UK, in Israel, because so it's you can get a salary from the UK, but the UK employer cannot withhold taxes from you. Remember that. Because by law you work on Israeli soil, that's not tax exempt, even though you are getting it from an employer in the UK, even though the money is being accepted in the UK, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that you get it on Israeli soil. Do you pay tax on British pension if already being taxed in the UK? So Olim do not pay for the first 10 years, nothing. After the 10 years are over, if it is being taxed in the UK, in most cases, no way you're going to pay also additional tax. I'm speaking now about after the 10 years are over, which is a long time from now. So no way you're going to pay additional tax if you already pay in the UK on pension. I'm going to the third question. After the 10 years exemption for Olim, if the Ole is a retiree, are there any tax, sorry, you have tons of tax credits after the 10 years, but again, as I said, it's so long, such a long time down the road. Let's get there, and when we get there, feel free to contact us, and we will answer such questions. It's a long time from now. Okay, what happens to a Toshav Chozer who hasn't lived in Israel since 87? Everything I've said about Olim Chadashim is correct for Toshav Chozer as long as he lived outside of Israel for a long period of time. And what is a long period of time? At least 10 consecutive years, at least. That's the minimum. So so it's almost the same, except that the extra tax credits, which I talked about. Everything else is similar between עולה חדש, תושב חוזר, what we call תושב חוזר ותיק, a veteran returning resident. If you hold property, example in Australia, in a family trust and make Aliyah, it means the beneficiaries are now Israeli. Is the tax office entitled? When it comes to trust, it seems like the question is about trust. I would prefer if they ask me separately. I don't want to get into it. It's too specific. I need to ask many questions, and I guess it's not for this forum. So I allow myself to skip it. Sorry. But you need to contact us directly. What happens if you work for overseas company but work from home? I'm not sure I do understand the next question.
Maybe the last question.
Yeah.
We have 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. Okay. What happens if you pay tax on earnings in South Africa while living in Israel? Is there a double tax agreement? There is a double tax agreement. No way you're going to pay twice. That's for sure, no doubt about it. What matters is where exactly you work from. If you work from Israel, it needs to be taxed in Israel. If you work from South Africa, you need to report and pay taxes to South Africa tax authorities. So separate it, like. But again, we will have to get. I will have to get more specific. Do we have more time for more questions?
Yeah, just one last question. How people can contact you or your company? How does it work?
The last slide on the presentation. Should I show the presentation again?
The presentation is in the system. Did you upload it to the system?
No, but it was recorded.
Okay.
But it was recorded.
Yeah, it was recorded. It's going to be. We're going to upload it probably tomorrow. Can you write on the chat your contact details?
Yeah. Okay. Let me just a second. I'll write you an email where you can send all of your questions. Just a second. Okay. So it's infobiz@014.net.al. Okay, just let me spell check it. Infobiz. Okay. Fine. If you see the email below, all you have to do is just write an email there. You will get an answer, I promise.
Did you put it on the chat?
Yeah, it's just a sec. Maybe it's only on the direct chat. Okay.
Okay. No,
it's only for you now, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, now my mistakes. Sorry.
No problem.
So infobiz@014.net.il. Okay, can everyone see it now?
Infobiz@014. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's in with everyone.
Amazing.
So just write us an email. You will get an answer from me or from someone else in our advisor group. You will get an answer, no doubt about it.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
And thank you for joining today. We're ending this lecture. Thank you. I'm turning off the recording.
Okay.